Started. Select board meeting calling to order November 1st, 2023. In attendance, you have Molly Keegan, Joyce Chunglo, Jane Nevin-Smith, Randy Iser, and myself, Amy Parsons. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, signed by the Governor on February 15th, 2022, I announce that this meeting of the Select Board is being recorded by Hadley Media, the Select Board's office via Zoom, and ask if there is anyone present who is also recording this meeting.
No one else is
Seeing. All right, let the minutes reflect that no one else indicated that they are recording this meeting. All right. Right, so we're going to go ahead and start with 2.1, Housing and Economic Development Committee. Peppers.
Yeah, so thanks for letting the committee come tonight. I think we have Justin Paland, Mark Howard, Bill Dwyer, myself. There may be other people on Zoom. But as you know, this is a committee that's appointed by the Select Board, and we've been working with the Select Board as well as the Planning Board. We kind of sit in between, if you will. So one of the things that we're working on, we wanted to come before the Select Board tonight to see if we could get feedback or general agreement on how to proceed. And specifically, it relates to having a housing forum in Hadley, and it's intended to be an educational forum. It's not to advocate for any particular type of housing, and it's actually recommended as an action item as a result of the housing production plan that was completed. So I was going to ask, Mark and Justin did the work on the outline that you have in your board document. So would you mind coming and
Thank you, Molly. Name and address for the record, right?
No, you don't need to.
No, it's not necessary.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody, for hearing us tonight. As Molly mentioned, the housing production plan, which is a very comprehensive plan, and also involved a survey of residents of Hadley. As far as I understand, it was one of the highest response rates that we've received on anything of the like. And from that survey, there were 3 priorities identified by the residents that they would like the town to focus on. I'm going to forget the order of them, but one of them was zoning bylaws, one of them was education, and one of them was access and equitable housing stock, or diversity in housing stock. So we sort of recognized as a committee that the first 2 weren't really things that we could address without addressing the third, which was education. So as Molly mentioned, the point of these sessions would be to basically provide as much information as possible so that when issues around these topics come up for vote, residents have the information that they need to make an informed decision. So the strategy that was outlined in the abstract is that we'd like to hold a 2-session forum. Session 1 would be basically just providing the information, having a set of panelists, experts in their field, talk about specific situations, specific issues, things that come up frequently in these conversations, perhaps try to dispel some myths around some of these things. And then session 2, after people have had a chance to digest, would be a question and answer session. Format is uncertain at this time, but the idea being that we can field questions from the residents, from the public, and help to maybe inform that narrative, help to craft the narrative so that when anything comes up for vote, they have the information that they need, their questions have been answered, and they can make informed decisions.
And the intent would be, if there's general consensus from the Select Board this evening that either you're fine with us proceeding accordingly, or, if you'd prefer that we hold off and you have more questions, the next step is to have the same, ask for the same audience with the Planning Board. They're meeting next Tuesday. So I think Bill was going to work on getting us on the agenda to make sure that the Planning Board is also aware of this. I mean, obviously, we didn't want to go out and start planning a public forum without letting the Planning Board and Select Board be aware of it. So again, educational only. It's not intended to promote or steer anybody in a particular direction. A lot of people have been asking questions about, how who changes the zoning, what is power of planning board, what's power of town meeting, et cetera. So just any questions from the select board at this point?
Do you have dates set for it, Molly, or any idea?
No, we were talking about trying to target maybe, January, February timeframe. And the thought is if that, this goes well, again, as Justin pointed out, it's really just trying to get information into the hands of whoever's interested in it. And Bill was thinking along the lines, or he made a comment at our committee meeting that, if the format works out and they wind up, we can learn from it and maybe it's a good opportunity. So if down the road, let's say that there's, a 40B or a 40R or whatever type of project, or you're just a private developer wanting to put in housing units, this could be a good format to come to the public to get feedback in advance of a public body making a recommendation or a decision. So I think that's what we're gearing towards.
Do you see the forum as being a Zoom thing or a public in person or a combo?
I think we're hoping for hybrid to get as much participation as possible. And then hopefully we'd probably be hoping that Hadley Media would cover it as well. Okay.
Maybe you got a handout.
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
I just got a quick question. What are these two people?
I'm Justin Collins, resident of Hadley for the last 7 years.
And I'm Mark Howard. I'm a resident for the last 30 something.
Yeah, they're members of the Housing and Economic Development Committee, Dan. Yeah, Joyce, you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just reading your agenda, the introduction and things of that nature. So this is basically how things are going to be talked about. And I think very important for people to look at these. And it is on the agenda for tonight that if you want to see what it's about, I mean, introduction, some are being presented by the PVPC, overview of town government procedures, the zoning bylaws, that would be the planning board. Again, the PVC will be talking, you'll have school input on this. The police chief, fire chief and DPW director will also speak on this. So it's all what will involve the whole community and what might be involved in changing the atmosphere of the town. And I encourage people to take a look at this agenda and see what it's about and, having your input. We don't want to do anything, backdoor. We want to keep people abreast of what's going on and how people are thinking, and everybody's thoughts and everything should be heard. So please take a look at the agenda on what they want to do and what they want to present.
Yeah, very quickly, thank you, Joyce, to that point. I'll just read the outline that Justin and Mark worked on putting together. So basic introduction from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. And by the way, the speakers, we haven't actually, again, we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves. So we're hoping to reach out to the police chief who's sitting in the back who knows nothing about this. But an overview of town government and procedures, which is just process, zoning bylaws and rezoning process by the planning board. And then the Hadley master plan, school system and enrollment, infrastructure and services, business and economic considerations, social and community considerations. And again, that would be the presentation, and then plenty of time for people to think about it, come up with questions. So that would be a second session.
If I can, just to clarify, that outline is a suggestion. I think the intent is when we actually engage with whoever the respective, call it expert in their field is, we're trying to provide some guardrails just to help frame the discussion, but we ultimately want them to be the ones to author their own information so that, they're able to give an unbiased and objective opinion on some of these subjects.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing I wanted to present, that people should be aware of what the presentation is and what the thoughts are of this committee and how we should proceed as a town, because it's not gonna be anything that wouldn't have to go through town meeting, but people should certainly be aware of everything.
Amy, is
Brenda?
Brenda has her hand?
Yes.
I just have a question, how did these two folks get on this board and this committee, is there, and what about the CPA, are we doing, what are we doing with the CPA? I mean, I don't understand all this way,
So-
doing this with our, we've got to redo this, we've got to do this, I'm just interested. I don't understand how these two.
I'm gonna caution you.
Sure, I can give you quick background, Brenda. The Housing and Economic Development Committee was formed 4 or 5 years ago at this point. Christian Stanley was still on the select board, so I think it dates back about 4 years. And some of the players have changed over time, but just like every other appointed committee in town, every year, we let people know if there are vacancies, right? So Jennifer puts the vacancies out, and then anybody who has a particular interest in volunteering can reach out and ask to be on the committee. So at some point in time, I don't remember exactly when, both Mark and Justin.
I didn't know, so I appreciate that.
Sure.
But I just want to make sure that the CBA is still involved in everything too.
That will be part of when whether it's Bill Dwyer or somebody else talks about process, absolutely ZBA will be included in that.
Okay.
And
So this is really kind of just information only, not really
So are you
up
asking,
for,
are you asking for a yes, go ahead, we approve this and we'd like to plan, let's have a forum?
Yeah, again, if anybody
Make a
has any,
motion that we have a forum for the housing economic development.
Second.
okay, motioned by Jane, seconded by Randy. Any further discussion? Any questions that the residents have can be, asked at that point as well.
Right.
Oh, sorry, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Excellent. Sorry, the last
right.
couple of meetings we've been doing roll call voting. Thank you for coming. Okay, so the hearing doesn't start until 6:30, so we'll continue on and we'll go ahead and move into public comments. So the public comment is a period of 15 minutes. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And that will give other people an opportunity to speak. Is there anyone here for public comments? So if you're physically here, just come on up to the microphone here. So that the people, so the microphone isn't gonna like make it loud in here. It's gonna make it so that people online can hear you speak. So come on up, Brenda. Just introduce your name. You don't have to give your address. It's not town meeting.
Well, I'm Brenda Feidenkevitz from Hadley. And I was just wondering, I'm very concerned about, I didn't realize until I saw it in the newspaper that we have residents that are being housed at the Nightly Hotel, I guess it is, up the
Knightson?
road. How is that gonna impact us? And has anybody did an investigation as to where these folks came from? I care about people and especially kids,
Mhm.
but I also care about the town's safety, the townspeople's safety. I
Mhm.
wonder how this is gonna affect our schools and all of the other things. Is anybody gonna get together and produce some kind of a meeting to talk about this? Because I know there's a lot of people that are furious about this. They're very upset about this.
So what I can respond to you with is that it is on the agenda this evening
Okay,
to have information to the public on that.
okay, because this is really important to an awful lot of folks that safety is first and foremost, and I know that our governor, Healy, has been, in communication with the Biden administration, about trying to fund things. And I hope that they're not going to put this on the backs of the Hadley residents to fund. And it's been happening all over the country. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comments physically or online? I don't see any hand raised online. Okay. Move on then. 4.1 consent agenda, warrants AP 2416S, AP 2416, AP 2415, AP 2415-2, AP 2415S, also the minutes from February 22nd, March 1st, 2023, March 15th, 2023, April 5th, 2023, and April 12th, 2023. Also, we have climate change committee resignation from Susan Moser. We have Hadley media appointment, Patrick LaBelle. Bylaw committee resignation of Dan Zdonik. One-day liquor license for Top of Campus Fan Fest.
Can you pull that off?
Let me finish reading it. Top of Campus Fan Fest, November 3rd, 2023, outdoor southeast corner of Mullen Center, conditional upon fire department approval with fire inspection and/or fire watch. DPW assistant mechanic appointment, Seth Wright, and also a one-day liquor license for the Newman Center at UMass V1 Vodka, November 19th, 2023, and December 16th, 2023.
Can we pull that one for a question?
We pulling both liquor licenses?
Well, it's Newman Center and Hadley.
Is Newman
No.
Center in Hadley? I don't,
Holding the event at V1 Vodka.
Yeah, so we're just doing them.
They pulled a license, V1 Vodka, Newman Center pulls the license for and they have an event at V1 Vodka. And the proceeds.
not the other way around.
No, but it is important to note that it's the UMass Newman Center pulling the license.
But for here,
It is here, the event
Okay.
is here at their location, but it's the Newman Center who's pulling the event, pulling the.
Got it.
Thing.
and I think
Thing is not the
the
right
bottom
word.
thing on this clarifies that. Do we need any further discussion on
Do we need,
the campus?
so is the, hold on a second. Is there anything that we want to pull off to further discuss right now? Does anyone have anything? I just wanted to make sure that we were good on the parking and everything for the V1, because I know they don't really have any.
The use of
Yes.
the gym parking.
Okay. Then I'm fine with it. Is everyone fine with the consent agenda? Okay, motion to approve.
Second,
All right, motion by Molly, seconded by Joyce. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Excellent. Unanimous. We still have about 12 minutes. Do you think we can do the Russell School Committee feasibility
Yes.
study?
Yep.
All right. So, the Russell School feasibility study group, we had 4 interviews, with 4 potential firms. So did you want to take it away? Sorry.
Yes, we had 4 proposals. All were qualified. Some were better than others. We used a scoring criteria. It was Scott McCarthy, because Gary Berg could not be there as building maintenance supervisor. He was at a training, so Scott sat in his place. Tommy Quinlan, our building inspector, Jennifer, myself, and Amy. And so we had several questions. We rated the questions. We followed the criteria from highly advantageous and to not qualified, or, and so the good thing is there were 2 extremely qualified firms. The bad news is they were close enough that although some of the interviewers, us, scored them as first, when we scored their numbers all together, they came in second, and vice versa, if that makes sense. So it didn't necessarily mean who was your first choice. It was all the numbers were scored. So I did talk with Amy. I think the recommendation should be, because they were so close, to have that group reconvene with some very specific questions that we'll meet ahead of time, that will really go dig deeper about their qualifications and how it matches to what Hadley's desire is for that reuse feasibility study. So that would be my recommendation, is that we would move forward. That it's not necessarily that you have to vote on it, but that's what I think would be the best thing for Hadley.
And when would you do that? When would you have?
As soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about a cost?
So with RFQ, the request for qualifications, you're not looking for cost, you're telling them the max. So we had authorized 40,000 for that. So that the cost of that doesn't come into play. All of them can in under 40, but that cannot be a part of the when you're doing design or feasibility.
I think what you're asking for makes sense.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were very close, and whoever had, one of them as their first place, the second place was the other first
Right.
place. So it was
Those
they
two
were-
were either first or second.
for everybody, for the most part.
So
Yeah.
that's good to bring them both back and then have
Yeah.
Good that we have
further interview.
two
Just,
companies that are.
Yeah, there really was
Same.
4. Which
yeah.
was really great to see after, some of the
Mhm.
bid processes that we've
Right.
been going through. So to have 2 be outstanding was
wonderful.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right, we're good with that. Okay.
Moving right along.
All right, so we have Scott on the line, and so we do have some tree dedications. One in memory of David Cholkus. And one dedicated to Michael Klomoski. So if you want to speak on that, Scott.
Good evening. I was approached by the Chokus family, or the town was, about planting a memorial tree for him in his memory of being a person here in Hadley. So we picked a spot over on North Lane along the dike. I was told that he liked to walk that area on a daily basis and, spend some time there and, do his thing. And I thought it was appropriate to plant it there as the family's request. So the tree was planted a couple weeks ago just because of the time frame of trying to get it in the ground and try to get it established a little bit before winter sets in. So that was done, and we had another spot over there, and talking to my guys about trees and etc., it was brought to my attention that the DPW would like to dedicate a tree to Mr. Komoski. He was a superintendent of DPW for over 40 years, and tree warden here. He did a lot for the community, especially with the trees. So we thought it was be a nice spot for him to have a tree dedicated for his service.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Motioned by Joyce and seconded by Molly
To approve those
to
dedications.
approve the dedications. Roll call vote.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott.
Thank you.
All right, so we still have 5 minutes. I think we can do the election
do it.
date one. That should
You'll
be.
probably still have to wait a couple minutes for the hearing. This will be quick.
Okay, so the election date and early voting, we need to do 3 separate votes.
So, yep, so I put it on there. You have a
Mhm.
vote to have the special election on December 12th. At the senior center from 12 to 8, which has been your standard practice.
Mhm.
You have to vote on those 2 questions. And then you have to vote to allow early voting in person, starting Thursday, November 30th through Thursday, December 7th at the town hall from 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Just a note, early voting by mail is automatic unless the select board opts out, which is at least 45 days before the election. After a public hearing, it really is a tight schedule in order for you to do that, if you have a desire to opt out of that.
Why would we want to opt out of it?
And can we assume that the clerk is recommending all of this, right?
She is, yes, she's recommending the date. We went through the dates and the time. Yes, thank you.
So
Okay.
like for the voting by mail, like, yeah, there's no action that needs to be taken as long as we are all in agreement that it is okay to vote by mail. Okay, excellent.
Okay, motion to approve holding a special election on December 12th, 2023 at the senior center from the hours of 12 noon to 8 p.m.
Second.
Okay, motioned by Molly, seconded by Randy. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, unanimous. The second one. Okay, so the second one, we have to vote on the 2 questions to be put onto the ballot. Can I get a motion for that, please?
motion to have two questions on the
I
ballot
should probably
from town meetings.
Yeah, they-
Read each one,
Read the
to vote on
questions.
each one.
Okay,
Oh,
so
each one.
each one separately.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
So the first question had to do with the fire truck. And the second,
Um,
the lockers.
So if you pull up,
yes, so
it's on one of your documents, word for word. You do have to do with the
Yep.
wording for it.
So, motion of the select board by the 2/3 vote to seek voter approval at a special election to exclude from the provisions of general laws, chapter 59, section 21C, the funds required for the payment of principal and interest on bonds, note or certifications of indebtedness. I think someone could second that.
I'll second.
Motioned by myself, seconded by Jane. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please.
I,
All right, excellent. Other motion was. Hold on. Get that one.
Do the town administrator's report in 4 minutes.
No, we still have to do the
Gotta
second.
give some more, another
We have to
vote.
do the other motion.
Oh. That was good.
Okay.
Moving along. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I have to find the one for the fire truck.
If you read the same, moved and
Yeah,
seconded.
it's the same motion.
And then,
Yeah.
And add
then
fire truck.
add question two to it, Amy, I think you'll be all set.
Okay. Motion of the select board by 2/3 vote to seek voter approval at a special election to exclude from the provisions of general law, chapter 59, sections 21C, the funds required for the payment of principal and interest on bonds, note or certifications of indebtedness for the fire truck. Ladder.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motioned by Joyce, seconded by Jane. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the last one we have to do is to vote to motion to allow early voting in person starting Thursday, November 30th through Thursday, September 7th at the town hall from 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m.
December 7th, right?
I'm sorry, November 30th through Thursday, December 7th at the town hall from, all right, motion by Joyce, seconded by
Second,
Randy.
sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
Amy, I got distracted. You voted on the date, correct?
Yes, that was the first one that we did.
Mhm.
We did the date, the two questions separately, and the early voting in person. So we technically did 4 votes.
I don't want Jessica mad at me.
Everything is good there. Do you want 3 minutes for your town administrator's report?
Well, it's 28 now, so. we only got
yeah.
2 minutes.
So I'll just wait. We can wait.
Yeah,
We can wait a couple minutes to continue the public hearing.
2 minute. intermission.
The lesser is out there.
Okay,
Come on
I
in.
see that.
Almost.
Come on in.
Do you want to sit and wait?
Sure, you can sit right there.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Congratulations to you.
Well, thank you very much.
How's it going?
3's a lot.
number 3's the best.
Yeah.
Depending on the age difference.
How old's the oldest one?
6. So almost 7, almost 3, and then August 20th.
Almost.
Yeah, he's the best sleeper though, so
And all males, all.
2 girls and a little boy.
Hope you saved the best for last.
Yeah, they
Right?
take care of him.
Yeah.
Already, you can tell.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I've got 2 girls and a boy. It'll change.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure, I'm sure it will. We can see it already.
Okay.
Okay.
Want me to know if I wanted pre-roll for dinner.
But yeah.
No, before 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock.
6:30, go for it.
All right, it is 6:30. So we're going to go into the appointments, the Young Men's Club public hearing continuation. All right,
Perfect.
would you like to start?
Yeah, if I may,
Yes.
for the record, Tom Reedy, attorney with Bacon Wilson out of Amherst here on behalf of the Young Men's Club. So last we were here to discuss this, I think was back in June 7th, I think. And the directive was to go and to figure out a solution, to look at the license and to figure out if there's something else that we could do. It's taken, admittedly, at my fault, a lot longer than it should have. But we've had some discussions. I've talked to the town administrator, I've talked with Jennifer, we've talked with the ABCC. I've talked to them a couple of times, but once jointly with both the town administrator and Jennifer, about just a plan going forward. And so one of the things that we had discussed when we were here in June.
Hold on, we need
Sure.
to pause for a second. You are recording us?
We just have to know.
We just have to note
That's it.
in our minutes that you're doing it. No, you totally can. We just.
Can you say where you're from?
Sorry.
No problem.
Places.
Sure.
Excellent, thank you.
So when we were here in June, we had talked about potential solutions. We had suggested potentially, one of the solutions was getting a general on-premises all alcohol license. And for a few different reasons, that was disfavored both by the club and likely by the town. And so the solution has turned out to be an alteration of the premises. So right now the club has a section 12, which has different facets to it. They have a club license. And so it would be to have that club license be on a portion of the premises. It's really the westerly, kind of northwesterly side where the building is. Today, we've hand delivered to Jennifer, we've submitted to the ABCC that application for an alteration of the license. It's alteration of the premises. So that will be in front of you at some point in the future. So we can actually discuss, that license amendment. But our thought is with that amendment, it eliminates it. We'll talk about the public events in a minute, but at least eliminates any issue with the deck or anything that occurs outside, like the cars and coffee. So that's the solution, part of the solution. The second part of the solution, and this is what we talked about with Ralph Sacramone, the executive director of the ABCC, was having the ability to have section 14, which are one-day licenses, on the balance of that property. And so we haven't submitted for any of those. The intent would be at some point in the future, well ahead of time, based upon what we've heard from police, fire, and building, so that there's enough time to give everyone time to plan for those events, would be to submit applications, ideally for the 3 events that the Young Men's Club would be looking for at once, ideally to have those issued at one time with whatever conditions the board sees fit, assuming that a lot of that's going to be coming from police, fire, building, and then whatever else the board wants to impose based upon what they've heard to date. So if when you take the property as that rectangle, all we're going to be talking about when we talk about alteration of the premises is kind of the upper left corner, if you're looking at it, with north being the top of that page. And then at some point, we'll come in with those section 14 application requests for the balance of the property. So that was, thanks to Jennifer, thanks to Carolyn, that was kind of the result of all the conversations that we've had. So, we're hopeful that this evening, the board decides to take no action and just close this matter. And then we'll have opportunities in the future to discuss the section 12 club. And then at some point, those section 14 one-day licenses.
And can I just ask, from a process standpoint, whether that's from you, Tom, or Jennifer and Carolyn? So, sorry.
No, I was just, okay. So are you looking at the process for the alteration?
Yeah, I was just going to ask what would happen at the very next meeting.
We can't ask questions tonight about the alteration. What would happen is there would have to be a public hearing about that in the future. So as long as, okay, you can ask your question.
Not discussing it, just
Yeah.
asking procedurally, yeah.
Yeah,
So thank you, Amy.
okay, sorry.
So I think you answered part of it. So
Mhm.
presuming that you want to move forward with an alteration of a liquor license, the process would be that you would make the application to the licensing coordinator
Mhm.
and then,
It's been submitted.
Yep,
yeah, again, I'm just generally asking. So it goes to
For
the,
any liquor license that we receive, we
Yep.
accept it, then I will reach out to the attorney or the licensee, depending on, work with them for the abutters list, the abutters notification, the public hearing process.
okay, so
And
normal
that
public hearing.
is, what will happen.
December.
December 6th would be the meeting that I would probably try to put it on for.
Yep. Because the license goes until December 31st. We would have to get that cleared up beforehand. Roughly,
Before
no,
renewal.
before renewal.
We have a
No.
public hearing. by
They'll
that time?
renew how they are. There's no way the ABCC is gonna be able to renew or alter somebody's premise in the middle of renewal season. So they'll stay how they are until then, until the ABCC has time.
Okay, so my recommendation personally and for the board would be to close the public hearing without finding and move forward with their recommendations.
I would like to say one thing before we do that, Amy. I'm in agreement with that. I just have a concern about your talking about the three major events. I believe the board has the authority to grant a one-day liquor license. I
Mhm.
don't believe we have the authority to grant permission to have the event. So just keep
Thank
that in mind when we're going forward.
So can I get a motion?
Confused on that one.
So what my recommendation was is that we close this hearing that's been going on for 3 months as no findings, which,
I move that.
and at a later date, we would have, because they've already submitted an alteration to their club license, we would have to go through the process of a public hearing and everything. So it's best for us to say today that we have no findings.
Okay, I move that we close the hearing with no findings.
Okay,
She needs to finish her statement.
no, that was it.
That was it.
That's
Okay.
good.
I'll second that.
Okay, so motioned by Jane, seconded by Joyce. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Good seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Better get home.
We'll see you soon, yeah?
Sleep, December 6th.
Month away.
Say it last thing,
Thank you.
10 o'clock, maybe I'll get some sleep.
It is being recorded.
Oh, no.
Okay,
So just thank Adam. He was,
Oh,
so.
Adam, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Nice to see you all.
You too.
It's
Give
always a
their
good day when your attorney doesn't have to speak much.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we're gonna go into 6.3. And we do have Senator Joe here as well as Annie McKenzie, school superintendent. And this is in regards to well, I'm not gonna call it that. I mean, I know it's on the agenda, but I'm not gonna call it that at the moment.
So, Let me help, we're gonna talk about the shelter right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I can help kind of segue this.
Yeah.
So on the agenda item, one of the topics is to an emergency declaration, a state of emergency. That discussion was about a week ago when, as you know, the task force had gotten put together. We had conversations with the senator and the representative, and really weren't sure about where we are at with that. So I spoke with Chief Spanknable. He's on vacation, but I did speak with him, and he feels right now it's premature. We're still exploring. Just so you know, that task force is keeping in contact. We have, as an entity, graciously allowed Annie McKenzie to be our point of contact for this. So she has been doing a fabulous job of coordinating conversations throughout our emails, as well as with Senator Comerford and Representative Carey. So I'm really happy that Senator Comerford could be here, that Annie could be here. And I guess I'm not sure which one of you kind of wants to start, Annie or Joe, but I think it would be really helpful to kind of bring us to where we're at right now.
I certainly have a summary, Senator, and I also defer if you would prefer to start. It's entirely up to you.
Superintendent, please lead, and I will catch up.
Okay.
Whatever is applicable from my part of this that hasn't been
All
covered.
right. Great. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us to speak. Thank you very much, Senator, for being here, and also for other members of the task force that our town administrator so astutely and quickly convened. I'm happy to provide information just in a general update on the emergency shelter that's currently operating in Hadley. The state of Massachusetts has booked 12 rooms, and one room is being used as space for the National Guard, storage areas, and just for coordination. In the remaining 11 rooms, there are currently 11 families, 32 individuals. 16 of those people are under 21 and 16 are over 21. The majority of the individuals arrived between October 16th and 17th. Some did arrive this past weekend. Although there is not a firm definitive date when each family will move out at this point, the goal is always to find more stable housing for families. Our legislative delegation, Representative Carey and Senator Comerford, worked diligently to secure an on-site service coordinator. So right now, service coordination is happening from somebody in the governor's office or in the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. However, thanks to Senator Comerford and Representative Carey, it looks as though we'll have an on-site service coordinator. So somebody that can kind of make sure that everything is going according to plan, the site is well supervised, etc. Thank you also to our town administrator for her fast and coordinated response to supporting newly arriving families. The members of our task force, which include the police and fire chiefs, the director of the Board of Health, our building inspector, our assessor, I hope I didn't forget anyone, and myself, we've convened on numerous occasions to talk about what we need to do in order to ensure the safety and security and well-being of the individuals who are living in the shelter and for the community at large. And a special thanks to Chief Spanknable, who was boots on the ground immediately to welcome new families. Our local task force created a workbook that includes an organization chart with names of all the people involved in this project, including people at the state level and our legislative delegation, our roles and responsibilities, and contact information for key people. We have a running list of tasks, questions, and needs, and a list of community-based organizations and individuals who have graciously offered to volunteer and support families who are in need. And I really want to acknowledge, I have been overwhelmed with gratitude and just touched by the compassion of people in the community of Hadley. And I even heard a previous speaker reference caring about people and caring about everyone's safety. So I'm just impressed and I'm touched. Once we have the on-site service coordinator locked in, and I think that's coming this week or next week, we will share that workbook with the on-site service coordinator. So they're really in a position, it will just be seamless. They will pick up the ball that we've been carrying. The schools have held an orientation for new families shortly after they arrived. Students have integrated very well into the school community, thanks to the skill, love, and tireless efforts of our faculty and staff, and the welcoming attitude of our students. They've been so great and joyous and ecstatic to make new friends, and again, to the community at large. For example, there was a parent who realized on Monday that Tuesday was Halloween and it was unlikely that elementary children would have costumes. And she was so concerned that they would feel left out that she took it upon herself to ensure that every single child who may not have a costume would, just so they wouldn't feel left out or lonely. The district will receive additional state funding to address the educational needs of students And as part of that funding, which will become available, I think, immediately, and we'll draw down upon it throughout the course of the year, we will also look at all the ways in which other town departments have contributed to this effort and make sure that everybody who is working, that we share these resources. The primary goal of the resources is to make sure that we meet the educational needs of students, but we are always eager to make sure that we support the town because the town is so good at supporting the schools. This has really not been disruptive for the schools. I mean, just to give you some context, this year, the 23-24 school year, we enrolled 36 new school choice students. Just as a separate aside, thank you very much for every single family who chooses Hadley. We're glad to have you and we're grateful. We enrolled 17 new Hadley resident students. So 53 new students total this school year as of today, 18 of whom started school after the first day of the school year. So students coming throughout the school year is nothing new, and we certainly can handle that. Beginning today, November 1st, 2023, the number of individuals in the emergency supplemental shelter system will be capped at 7,500 families. The basis for the cap is the program is at capacity and the state has exhausted much of the funding it set aside for the program. There was an advocacy group that filed a lawsuit to block the governor's proposed cap. A judge did rule today in favor of the governor. Massachusetts has a right to shelter law dating back to 1983. And so people have the right to shelter. That is a legislative right. That is most of my update. And I certainly welcome, I'm sure that Senator Comerford has additional things that she may want to add. But again, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much to the task force, to our town administrator, who I know gets support from the select board, and to the community for being compassionate, gracious, and committed to the safety and well-being of every single human who resides in Hadley. I'm really proud to work in this community, and I just want to say thank you again.
Good evening, friends. It's hard to follow Superintendent McKenzie with those beautiful remarks, but let me just start by saying that I echo the superintendent's enormous thanks to the town of Hadley for your skilled, strategic, compassionate response to having families located at the Knights Inn. It's been a privilege to work with you in these last finite period of time with regard to the Knights Inn, of course, in partnership with Rep. Carey, and Dan's an amazing partner through all of this, as the superintendent said. I'll build on the superintendent's amazing remarks with just a couple of details. We know, I believe, after the superintendent talked about the number of families, we know that as part of the governor's consideration about capping shelter residents, part of it was that we were running short on service providers. That's just true, which is why the initial Knights Inn was staffed by members of the National Guard, and we're grateful for their service. I know Hadley is as well, but they cannot do the kind of work, the steadfast day in, day out case management. They've said as much, and we know as much, but they've been great partners getting this started. So the emergency shelters, the emergency assistance shelters in the shape of the ones like Knights Inn are, as the superintendent said, staffed in kind of a spoken wheel model. So we've come in contact now with the governor's staff who's covering central and western Massachusetts. It's difficult to cover from a distance, again, which is why a provider on the ground is really going to be very important. I think a game changer for Hadley. So this is a good event. I think a good outcome for Hadley is to get a provider on. As the superintendent said, there is a provider who has said yes, and the state has recognized and agreed to work with this provider. That's about 90% of the way there. They are doing a contract revision to this provider. It's a large provider in the area. And we imagine that's going to be done, as the superintendent said, this week or next week. But we did receive a letter today from Housing Livable Communities staff person responsible for this, so that we could send it to the town. And I have forwarded it to the superintendent and town administrator and a few others in the town, just to make sure that you saw what I saw, which was the state not just saying that it was working on the contract, but actually writing it knowing that it would be forwarded to you for the town's consideration. The second thing I'll say is that the superintendent and Carol and town administrator Brennan have already begun this kind of knowledge transfer, which is of course optimal. And we do have a call scheduled for Friday afternoon. The service provider is very willing to work before the contract is finalized, and we're happy for that. And the service provider is also really wanting to hear directly from the town. And I believe the superintendent started some of that, the ways in which they can interface most effectively with Hadley. So I am heartened by this. We're not there yet. We have to have this meeting on Friday. We have to get the contract and make sure that the service provider has favorable terms. And I'm happy to, watchdog that with all of you. I do believe that, at the highest levels, they understand that it is going to be a benefit to Hadley to have a service provider on site. And then of course we have to support Hadley. Dan and I, Rep. Carey and I have to support Hadley as you continue to welcome and support these new residents, as the superintendent has already done so beautifully in the schools. And as I know, public health and, first responders are already thinking about the way, of course, the building inspector, the town needs to make sure that they are treated with care in a humane location. And I should also say, there is there's a Greenfield shelter with a ServiceNet as the provider on site. And in that shelter, they've already begun to work with Center for New Americans, which has already been in touch, offering, kind of English language classes. Mass Hire is another organization, Franklin, Hampshire Mass Hire. 4 people in the shelter have already gotten jobs in Greenfield. So there's a quick hustle to move folks into a place where they can have more autonomy. Everyone to a person who I've met wants to work. And the governor and lieutenant governor have made it exceedingly clear that the federal government must help expedite the work permits. Some folks are coming with the ability to work, others are not. And then very, very lastly, I'll say the governor has also made it very clear, and I'm sure Hadley folks have seen this, that we really do need financial help in the Commonwealth to respond. Limits or no, this is still an expensive venture for the state. And I believe she's made a very good faith effort at the federal level to show HHS, Health and Human Services, what's happening in Massachusetts, and to really ask the federal delegation and the Biden administration for their partnership. And I support that certainly as a state legislator, and I will continue to support that because this is a bigger issue than what's happening in Massachusetts. It's happening nationwide. We just happen to, have communities like Hadley that are so wonderful. And, states like Massachusetts wanting to do right by our families. So that's it. I'm happy to take questions. And thank you so much for affording me the opportunity to join Superintendent McKenzie.
If you want to come up to the microphone here so she can hear you.
I do have a question, and I wish that you folks had talked to a lot of the actual residents here in Hadley, because there's a lot of concern with a lot of it's not kumbaya. I'm going to tell you that right now, with all due respect, Senator. I really, with all due respect, and we are not happy. And this is not going to be a stop to bring these people. And I hope that somebody has vetted these people, because there's a lot of people coming over the southern border. Now I hear the northern border. There's a lot of problems going on. And I feel bad for these people, but we didn't ask them to come across. And from what I know too, and what a lot of other people know, that the governor has approached the Biden administration, and many other states have, and they haven't gotten a dime. And I hope this doesn't fall on the people of Hadley, the residents. And I wish that you folks had talked to the people of Hadley, because there's a lot of people that are extremely concerned. And I bet it's the majority.
I'm sorry that
I'll go and sit down and listen to your comments, but we're not going to put up.
I didn't get your name, so forgive me for not addressing you.
You were working with me on another issue that never has.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see you. Forgive me for not being able to see who you were through the Zoom. Zoom is a strange thing. So I think it's really important for you to know that Hadley didn't make the decision, and I, as your state senator, didn't make the decision.
I hope not, because we're very upset.
So I hear that you're very upset.
Wait a minute.
Hold on.
Brenda, let her speak, please.
So Brenda, I think it's really important. I don't think the superintendent or I gave the impression that this was a decision on the part of Hadley or the state legislature. But it is a decision that we're responding to. And I'm proud to partner with Hadley in this. And I'm going to be steadfast in that partnership and getting resources for the town. And it's really important to know that the Knights Inn is a contracted location. It's a private business with which the Healy Driscoll administration contracted, just like the Days Inn up in Greenfield. So, I think it's really, Hadley folks may want to speak to Brenda directly too, but it's not something Hadley asked for. It is something that happened in Hadley. And because it has happened as a connection to the state, I feel like it's my job to jump in and be the strongest partner possible, with a town doing absolutely stellar strategic work in the face of an event that happened, where these folks are now in our community. So I was trying to I was trying to talk about the fullness of the idea for how we can as a state respond, including English language classes and job training and education, because I do think there is a transformation that's possible through this. But I don't pretend that it was Hadley's decision or the legislatures. I do think, though, it is ours to grapple with as partners. And I'm proud to do it, actually. And I'm happy to do it. And I'm proud of Hadley.
May I add one other additional comment to that? Thank you very much, Senator. And also, I just want to thank you, Brenda, for giving voice to a question that I think many people might be wondering, which is you brought up the question of safety and asked explicitly to what extent are individuals vetted when they go through the emergency shelter system. I'd like you to know that Chief Mason asked very specific questions of the state and the governor's office. He can speak in more detail, but I can tell you that one of the responses that he did receive is that prior to any family being placed in the supplemental or emergency shelters, they are vetted through Department of Homeland Security if they are a newly arriving immigrant. So that's just to answer that question directly, which I think is certainly a question that, as you say, Brenda, is probably on a lot of people's minds. So thank you for raising it and providing the opportunity to speak to it directly.
And Amy, can I just, because I think it is an important question about whose decision was this? It absolutely was not Hadley's. It was not the legislator's decision. We got an email, I think it was October 11th, letting me know as the executive officer for the town that 11 families were going to be placed at the Knights Inn. And then within 3 days, it wasn't a matter of you've got 2 weeks to plan. This is what to expect. We literally just got an email, and within 2 or 3 days, we were notified that they were placed at the Knights Inn. So our response was to put a task force together so we could respond. I think the important thing to use is the term humanely. We responded humanely. We had to make sure all of those questions that you were asking. Annie was amazing when we were talking to all of the state stakeholders. Almost everything you asked, she asked. Are they vetted? Who's the caregivers? Do we know who the parents are? Is this exactly who are you verifying who this is? She was stern, she was firm, and she was making sure those answers were provided for her. So she knew that who was going to be, what kids were going to be in what grade, where, when, and how. So there was so much work done, but we had literally less than a week's notice. So the town had no warning, and we had no choice. This was a private transaction.
Well, I think, and I appreciate that, I appreciate all the work that everybody has done, but I don't appreciate the way that this is brought them happened. And I'm not the only one. There are many, many residents that are furious over this.
So you didn't see us the first few days.
Fury. I'm sure Amy did her job. I'm not saying that somebody didn't do the job, please.
Okay.
With all due respect.
Yep.
I'm not saying that. And I wouldn't say that. But what I am saying is that we have gotten many straight answers through Homeland Security. This person, Mayorkas, has been asked many times and he is lied. And I'm very upset over this. And if they think that we aren't paying attention, I feel sorry for these small kids. I really do. I love kids. I love kids. And I would kids if I could have. But, you know, it's fearful to see these people coming up through the southern border and to see them going, they didn't ask to have this happen to them. Let's get that straight right off the bat.
I just want, can I just say that I think that it's unfortunate all the way around, and yes, there were some people that were upset by how it came about without knowing the full extent of how it came about, and I think with all these explanations tonight that have been given, I think that gives them a little bit more information for what they needed to hear, but I also feel like Hadley stepped up to a situation that was handed to us. And I think that our command force has done an outstanding job in taking this situation and making it humane, as Carolyn said, and making it better for these people that had come here. It's not their fault. And I just think that we just stepped up to the plate on it. And I'm glad I live in Hadley and that we're able to do this. And we handle situations that are handed to us all the time. And some of the situations you don't know about, but this one you know about because it has hit the news and it's very out there for what's around the whole country. And I think Hadley has done an outstanding job, and I thank everybody that's been involved that has been doing this, so.
I don't know how to ask this question appropriately. But I think I know that, you know, with the governor, you know, really. Okay, so Massachusetts is the only of the 50 states left that has a right to shelter law that goes back to the 1980s. I think with the governor, you know, saying that we're at capacity, I think there is some concern with residents of the state and some people in this town as well, as far as capacity to shelter U.S. citizens during the winter months.
That's right. We have
people that are U.S. citizens.
Families here.
And
taking these
well,
folks.
That's the most appropriate way that I can ask the question, I suppose. And if there's a response to that, Senator.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Oh, sorry. Is it okay for me to respond?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Sure. I mean, honestly, you're completely right that even before we had the surge of refugees, again, this is nationwide, but here in the Commonwealth, we didn't have enough shelter beds for individuals or families in the Commonwealth. We know that. We also know that our affordable housing situation is quite bleak here, both affordable and workforce housing. So both of those things, you know, again, I'll just speak to the governor. You know, both of those things the governor spoke about while she was campaigning, and then she created the Housing and Livable Communities Secretariat. You know, and we have Secretary Augustus now, who's actually in Amherst, and tomorrow he's in Athol, and the next week he's in Greenfield talking about the housing bond bill. And the housing bond bill is a $4.1 billion investment with 28 policy changes, which is off the hook bold. And I think it was all ready in process for some time before, you know, the crisis that's in our midst now. And I think it speaks to just a broad awareness. And I share your concern that we don't have enough capacity in the Commonwealth, in terms of shelter or workforce or affordable housing. And it has to be taken up as one of the most urgent issues of this session. And nothing we have done to date has generated enough affordable housing units, nothing that we have done to date in the Commonwealth. And that's not just Western Mass, that's statewide. And, here in Western Mass, I'm sure you know these figures, we're projected to have a 13,000 unit affordable housing gap in just about 5 years, unless we do something, right? So what I'm excited about is that we're doing something as a state. We are really, with this housing bond bill, going to line up both money that communities need, and then we're going to line up tools for smart communities like Hadley. And then you can pick and choose from those tools to decide how you might want to raise your own capital, or you might want to make some administrative changes at the state level to make Hadley a place where it's easier to build housing of all kinds, honestly, but especially affordable, especially workforce. The other thing I'll say, and this is tangential, but I think for us it's real, friends, which is that we're losing population in Western Massachusetts. And that has an impact on the schools, although Hadley is doing quite well with school choice, superintendent. But it's having it's having an impact on workforce, on economic base, on town budgets, on school budgets. And part of that is attendant to housing. If we want to welcome in new families who are going to help us grow as a community, we have to have places for them to live at all economic levels, but especially because of the high cost of housing in the middle and working and poor brackets of the income spectrum. So I'm with you. It's real. It's real, and it was real before this. There was an ache to the fact that we couldn't house all the individuals. There was an ache to the fact that families were in hotels, and people were sleeping rough outside. None of that is okay if we think about having a humane society. And this is sort of laying it bare for everybody to see, right? We're ripping off a Band-Aid of something that has been real before this year. For us. And I look forward to hearing from Hadley what you like about the bond bill, what you don't like about the bond bill, and how I can support you in the work to really have a different new day for us in the Commonwealth. I do think communities like Hadley can lead the way because there's so much good about the community and there's so much of a commitment to act humanely, as Carolyn said.
Then my last question was for people that might want to move beyond Facebook. What's a good contact for them to get into to express any of their concerns or thoughts on the situation?
I can offer that at this point in time, I'm the point of contact between the state and Hadley in terms of this shelter program. So if people have questions, I'm certainly happy to do my best to answer questions or to get answers for people. If people have concerns about legislation, a legislative agenda, what they'd see in that arena, then I would say always reach out to your elected officials who that's their lane and what they do. There are specific questions pertaining to the site in Hadley. I'm happy to answer, at least try to answer those questions. And then also I have heard from a number of people who have wanted to offer to donate items or to help or to just help in any way that they can. As I said, part of the workbook that we've put together includes a tab for people who are interested to volunteer. So folks can certainly email me and they can access my email through the school department website, amckenzie@hadleyschools.org. And even if they're a private citizen, how they would be comfortable helping. Some people have said, oh, I would donate something, or I'd be happy to help teach in English as a second language class as a volunteer. Email that to me, and then I will put that in our workbook and let the new on-site provider have that information.
Absolutely. And just to echo what the superintendent said, we work for you at the state level in the legislature, Dan and I, Rep. Carey and I, we're easily findable online, and certainly Carolyn has our cell phone numbers as well. Well, Dan's not here, so I'll just say, Carolyn, give out my cell phone number. And, we are both in our own emails. We respond directly to constituents. We set up lots of meetings. We both come to the Hadley Senior Center fairly regularly for office hours. That's a joy that we get to do that together. So I don't think we're strangers in Hadley. And we're delighted to hear from constituents. We have heard from a number of constituents. We don't imagine you're a monolith, to Brenda's point. And we have heard, both, we really want to help, and we've heard some real significant, concerns, and I respect both, and I want to receive both. And I do think when we have a service provider on site, it will be transformative, as I said, and I look forward to that moment, and it's coming soon. We'll just give it some nudging, but I do think it's coming soon for Hadley. And again, Hadley won't be, it's going to be, there are many sites around the Commonwealth that won't ever get service providers simply because there wasn't one available, one willing to step up. So in some ways I'm breathing my own sigh of relief that for Hadley, because I work for the town, I'm glad for this.
Thank you.
Well, I certainly hope so, because I haven't done anything.
Do you want to come
As
to
far
the
as
mic?
I'm concerned, I mean, I am concerned for these little kids coming over the border. It is not their fault.
Mhm.
And again, I love kids, but this is no way to do it, and I don't feel comfortable with the director of Homeland Security that can't get, it won't give straight answers to anybody, and then we find out it's not the truth. So I'm telling you, I know, and I'm not speaking for everybody else that has just called me and different people that have talked to me. I was on vacation this whole thing.
Yeah.
My phone blew
So
up.
let's,
So-
I was gonna,
Hi, my name's Anthony Fiden. I just have a couple quick points and then a question for the select board. My first point is that just kind of an obvious one is that we're talking about children here, children that are now in our community. I'm happy but not surprised to know that they're being welcomed into our schools while they're here. As long as they're here, they're our kids and just as much as anybody else. And I'm confident that they're going to be treated that way. My second point, and maybe the senator can address this. One thing I was disappointed to hear was that the National Guard, there was a National Guard sergeant, National Guard troops there. That's not the role of our National Guard to be. I don't want to say babysitting, but to be caretaking or guarding. I don't know what they're doing there. I'm not happy about that at all.
Just
National Guard troops.
Coordinating their care, basically,
I
right now.
don't think that's a role for National Guard soldiers.
They have many
And
roles.
my third point is just I was curious. I believe there are 8 sanctuary cities in Massachusetts, and 2 of them are our neighbors, Amherst and Northampton, I think. And it's interesting that with 2 sanctuary cities surrounding us, Hadley was selected for this without being asked. It was talked about. Hadley is always willing to do our part when asked, but it does bother people when we're not asked. So I'm sure
again, it's
bothers a lot
a
of
private business. There is nothing that we can do, and
Right.
and it's a sanctuary city as a whole.
my question.
Stop.
My question is as I understand it, last year or recently, the Knights Inn was used as a temporary shelter for Craig's doors.
Mhm.
At that point, I believe that the fire chief or some of our town officials had a problem with the facilities, that it was not up to standards, and that was actually they were moved out of there because those facilities were not up to standards. So I'm wondering, since last year people were moved out of there, it wasn't sufficient as an emergency shelter. Was it changed? Did something change? Is it still insufficient? Is that that seems I'm just curious about why it was not sufficient then and is sufficient now. Thank you.
Tommy, want to
So
see
you got people in the back of the room that can answer that. Even.
Yeah,
Tommy,
do you
want
want to come on up for a second, just to?
Joe, this is our building inspector, Tommy Quinlan.
How you doing? Yes, it is, at this change of use, it should be sprinklered. However, the state, we have no control over it. I've reached out to Greenfield, other communities, and we have no control over making that happen. We did get guidance from the state back in May, I think it was May 9th of this year, that we would be notified and do an inspection, bring it up to code, but that is one thing a little disappointed with. But my hands are tied.
Thank you.
On the National Guard question, the gentleman asked directly to me, the governor and the Guard leadership made this decision. I will tell you that Senator John Velas, who is an active duty Guard, was deployed, and, John felt really proud. And so he's my colleague. I love him. He's just to the south of us. He felt really proud to serve. And he reported to the Senate that many of his colleagues felt the same, that, they were called to serve at a moment of real crisis for the Commonwealth. But I hear you. I just want you to know where the decision lies. It's, it was a decision by the governor, but also, with input from the Guard. That's my understanding. And in terms of the inspection, I do know that the incoming service provider, probably thanks to Carolyn and superintendent, has a sense of the town's concerns over the physical structure of the building. And I do think that's a conversation that can happen. Hopefully will happen on Friday, in part about just laying out the concerns for the town. I'm not saying it's all going to magically go as planned, but I do think this is one of the things that's possibly possible.
Hi, Peter Matusco. I have a few questions, whereas when I hear the word emergency shelter, I take that as it being a temporary situation. Is this considered emergency until their work permits are established and then they have a little bit of grounding, and then do they move out and then another family comes in? Then that's one question. Then the other question is, my little notes here. And if with these families that we have, if these other 11 families, when it comes to the low income housing or whatever we are calling it, that's well above and beyond the 12% that we've had questions about with the other hotels. Can we now say if these are going to be established families that we've well exceeded our quota for the town to not having more than what we are people to be expecting of us because we've now exceeded that quota? And then after, the other thing is, it's great that they've been vetted, these families. We don't know where they're from. Have they all been vaccinated? From all the vaccinations, we don't know from where they're from. This town 2 years ago shut down because UMass opened. Because everybody was worried when the students were coming in. Has everything from smallpox, polio, all those vaccinations that we take for granted have they all been vaccinated for those and the most common ones we have now? That's my concern, and I'm sure a lot of the people in this town are worried about too.
Well, the Board of Health is on the.
So Annie can answer some of those, I believe.
You'd love to see some proof with all these vetting and all of this.
Well, I'm sure the chief wouldn't buy it. So I'm not concerned about that, but I'm more concerned about our vaccinations for our students and our students.
That's right.
Can Annie speak to that about the schools?
I think she's ready to answer.
Yeah, so.
Ann, can you speak to that?
I can speak to the process of vaccinations, obviously, and
Hold on, I just is talking about vaccinations, is that a violation of HIPAA?
So I can speak to the process of it. I was just about to say, I don't.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't catch
you're fine.
the first name of the gentleman, but and I don't think that the individual was asking for a specific health record on every person there. I think the question that I heard was, can somebody tell me in general, is there a process to ensure that the healthcare needs of the people who are in supplemental shelters are being met for their protection and the protection of the larger community. The shortest, simplest answer is yes. How that happens is, and I'm assuming what happens in Hadley is probably standard operating procedure across the state. So within just a few business days, a couple of business days of arriving at a supplemental shelter, the Mass Department of Public Health sends nurses on site, medical personnel on site, just to make sure that people are in good health. They don't have any immediate medical needs that need to be addressed. And then the state ensures that individuals are connected with local healthcare providers. And individuals in supplemental shelters are given appointments to see local healthcare providers. And as part of any routine physical examination, your healthcare provider is going to do an assessment of what your health in general. Just think when any of us get a physical, what vaccines have we had? What vaccines do we need? How are we feeling? Just in general. And I'm assuming that this is standard operating procedure in the state, but I can tell you that that's the process that occurred in Hadley. So first, immediately Department of Public Health nurses on site, just to make sure that people are okay, or within, not the day that they arrive, but within business days of arrival. And then they are matched with a local healthcare provider, and they go to a physical medical appointment.
And then I think the other question was in regards to being emergency shelter, the plan, moving forward once there is work permits, having these individuals placed in a more permanent situation.
I would defer to the senator on that. I think that speaks to the larger state plan of, is that okay to defer to you on that, Senator?
Fine. It's totally fine. I'm just going to be honest. I think the general belief in the Haley Driscoll administration is that folks need access to education and job training and job opportunities, which we know there are plenty of jobs that need to be filled. And the hope is that that will lead them to greater independence. In other shelters that are much longer established in Western Massachusetts, and to some extent in Greenfield, housing searches have begun immediately for the residents. And that's because I think probably no one wants to get out of a shelter more than the people in the shelter, right? Because it's hard to have kids in a shelter, and people want to be able to care for their families and themselves. That is the orientation that I have witnessed in other parts of the district. And I do believe that's the intention of the Haley Driscoll administration and the Housing and Livable Communities folks. And they are, they're speaking directly to the work of organizations like Center for New Americans, for example, but they're putting a lot of investment and a lot on the plate of Hampshire, Franklin, Mass Hire. And these are good folks. They know our employment needs. They know how to train people. And they've already risen to this occasion in our region. And they're hitting it because, again, their employers have lots of openings. So, the hope is that this will move very quickly and, we'll support it along the way.
I'm guessing these are going to be permanent, even though it says emergency, it's going to be temporary. So these will be 11 permanent families towards this town.
Not necessarily.
Not so they can go over to getting those. So when a person is well established, gets their work permit for whatever they need to, then another family will come back in.
No, that's not. Excuse me, sir. That's not what I said. That's not what I said at all. I was just talking about the cohort that was
easy.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Don't be rude.
I was talking about the cohort that was with us right now.
Yeah, you are.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was talking simply about the cohort of families that were in Hadley currently. I can't speak, and it would be wrong of any of us, I would imagine, to speak to the administration's plans, going forward. As the superintendent said, the governor has put a cap. That cap was challenged in court, and today we received a decision. And she put that cap because we are really running out of space in the Commonwealth. So whether you agree with that or not, I'm not going to talk, I don't think that's the matter before us tonight, but I do think that she's recognizing the strain on communities and budgets, and trying to do everything we can to get our arms around it in a way that the state needs to do.
With the select board acknowledges that these additional families will go towards that quota for the housing that we questioned about with the other hotels, that we've exceeded that 12%.
I think it's important to note that the housing searches won't only be in Hadley, right? The people who are looking for housing, who are currently in the Greenfield shelter, are looking across Western Mass, across Massachusetts. So it is not guaranteed that they'll stay here. I mean, but it's not guaranteed that certainly not guaranteed that they'll stay in Hadley, because the housing searches will be very broad, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Annie and Joe for being here this evening. As Annie indicated that she is willing to take any additional questions via email in regards to the situation that we have right now. And thank you, Joe, for being here tonight and answering questions and letting us know that you're definitely an ear for us.
So, and Amy, if I can just say, we are meeting on Friday with several different types of stakeholders, state, local as well. But one of the things we will be talking about, how is what's the best way to keep the residents updated and to keep everyone updated about what's happening there.
And it's also important to know that we're responding and reacting. That there isn't any control that anyone in Hadley has in regards to this. So thank you again.
If I could just say, Hadley actually has really exercised quite a lot of good thinking. I mean, I just really want to applaud the community, because immediately with the task force, you were already leaps and bounds ahead of many communities. And while you're responding, you're putting in, I think, some very good parameters that the state has to respond to. And that's, again, I think, to be respected and applauded on behalf of the community and the select board in the town. And of course, the superintendent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you for coming on.
Yep. I'm going. Calm down. Moving on to 8.1, Town Administrator's Report.
Sure, let me just pull it up. We did make some progress with some hiring. Just remember that's the so yes, we are still I think we're Mike left.
Oh, Mike left.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna ask about the dispatcher. I hadn't had a chance to do that. But we are still looking to hire a DPW laborer. We did made an offer to an assistant mechanic who is very experienced and also will share in other responsibilities. We had some I think very good candidates for the Council on Aging Director. We've interviewed, how many did we interview, Jane? No, we interviewed more than one.
Well, we have two coming. We interviewed one, there are two more interviews next week.
Oh, that's it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you. The collective bargaining agreement for the Hadley municipal employees, that's continuing because the wages went through at town meeting and you had approved them, but we're still working on the collective bargaining agreement as a whole. So that will be a future executive session for the select board to review and recommend. I'm just skipping the areas that are in process. I think you know that the open house went really well, and for the DPW, that vote was successful. So the schematic design was approved at the special town meeting. What I would like to ask the select board on the 15th, we'll put it on the agenda for you to decide whether you want to keep that committee the same or make a change, but I'll have that before you at the next, on November 15th. And then we'll move forward for procurement. I really wanted to focus a little bit on the risk management update on my report. Susan Glowatsky, as you know, you've designated her as our risk manager. She is working diligently to do trainings for not only DPW workers, but other entities. And she actually wrote a grant and received funding for a drone and to train an operator of our drone. So that will help us with inspecting, especially all of the municipal owned roofs, hard areas to see, the wells, all of that. And Wade is Wade Vandalski. I needed time to correct it. He's right now is our only licensed operator, but we have about 14 who are interested in getting their certification for that. It's really a license. It's a license, not a certification. So it's an aircraft. And she continues to coordinate the quarterly safety committee meetings. And so all of this she does saves us money. We get reward points for our insurance. So we haven't had that before. And this has been great that she's been doing this the past couple of years. And I talked about the schematic design. We also are beginning our procurement for the girls softball field. Parks and Rec had gotten an earmark 2 years ago to do a girls softball field at North Station. I explained the Russell School, and I just wanted to give you guys a reminder, as well as other boards and committees. I'd sent out a notice of a webinar being put on by the Mass Municipal Association for how to set yourself up for success, increasing the efficiency of meetings. That's something I get a lot from the committees and the boards on how to hold a meeting, the agenda preparation, and drafting the meeting minutes. So I will keep forwarding those to our boards and committee chairs and hoping that they participate in that. So that is all new that I have to the town administrator's report.
Okay. Are there any members that have items that they want to have for future discussion?
Yep, okay, I do. I think 3, a couple of repeats. One is just making sure at special town meeting, it was clear that the finance committee is very interested in having a joint meeting. So hopefully we can get that scheduled soon. And then I wanted to come back to, I'm hoping to get an update from Carolyn on how she's doing against the goals that were agreed upon at the end of, end of the last fiscal year, beginning of this year, I guess. And then third, looking for, I think this was brought up before about, likely an executive session, but just getting an update on everything that the town outside council is working on. So starting to lose track of some of those things.
So right now, all of them are in executive session. So
yeah,
we'll
I mean,
have to
just
pull
like just one update, on where we stand on each of them.
So can I just ask for clarification? You want that as the attorney's coming in to give that, or?
No, I think
because everything we've been going to executive session has been those, but I'm welcome. If you want me to do that all in one, I can do that.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, if you could just give us like a rundown of what's closed, what's still outstanding, how close we are to, getting something over the finish line, that kind of thing.
Nothing.
I just have one. I still want us to work on the painting of the town hall.
Oh, I'm on it.
Okay.
I just had to get through to town meeting.
I know, but I'm just,
And now I got to wrap up on everything that happens after town meeting.
I know, but I think, just have it at the forefront that if we're looking to get it on the CPA for spring town meeting, that would be a good thing.
I agree.
And it's gonna take, of course, the CPA is gonna want, how much is it gonna cost? And then you're going to have some citizens, I'm sure, wanting to know what we're going to use to paint the building again, or is there some other option that they would want to do? I've heard other remarks from different people about that, so. Anyway, it's a topic for discussion.
Yeah, okay.
I have a question about your report, which is the openings for senior and veterans tax work-off, is that 5 in each division or 5 between the two seniors and veterans?
So that was given to me by verbatim from Haley. So
I believe it's 5 each, but it's not clear here, and that's why.
yeah, I would have to go back to Violet.
Okay.
Ask Violet.
It is 5 each.
Thanks, Susan.
Is there any other items for future discussion? Okay. Are there any liaison reports?
That would,
Okay. Announcements?
I just have one.
Okay.
To the condolences to Jeffrey Thornton's family. He was a town resident. He had 2 children and 3 grandchildren. So condolences to them, his family and friends.
Okay. Okay, so we are. And oh, sorry, any other announcements? Okay. All right, so I'm going to move pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, that the board go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation. As the chair, I've determined that the board, any public discussion of which will have a detrimental impact on the litigating position of the board. So we're going to close
We need to know what we're going into executive session for.
for the cable renewal negotiations, and not to reconvene an open session.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Randy. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Roll call.
No?
Oh, sorry, roll call
It is
vote.
roll call.
Yeah, for executive session. Back and forth.
Good save, Jane.
Thank you.
Roll call Keegan,
Yes.
Strickler,
Yes.
Parsons.
Yes.
Nevin Smith.